Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're on location here with the White Cane Coffee presents Coffee and a Conversation. I'm here at the West Forest School, the central office for Forest Area School District. I'm Chris Rossetti with your daily local. Don't forget to stop into White Cane Coffee in the Tops Plaza in downtown Warren for a fresh cup of their coffee. Get one to go. Get one of their special laser engraved tumblers. Get it filled with your purchase, and when you bring it back, get 50% off your refills as part of the White Cane Mug Club. While you're there, you can pick up a fresh cinnamon roll, Danish, or breakfast burrito. Stop in around lunchtime. Soup and sandwiches are now available as well. Don't forget that if you don't want to deal with the traffic, White Cane is available on DoorDash, so you can get all your favorites delivered right to your door. You can also order your favorite roast to brew at home at whitecanecoffee.com. This is Coffee and a Conversation, and we are with our special guest this week, Forest Area School District Superintendent Amanda Hetrick. Amanda, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Amanda's got a really cool thing going on here in the next week or so. She gets to go to Germany and take a look at how the Germans do their school system. It's sponsored by the Pennsylvania School Board Association. And Amanda, first of all, tell us a little bit about how you got chosen for something this cool.
I actually saw an email about it, and it kind of described the trip and what they were hoping to accomplish. And a lot of it revolved around careers and apprenticeships and some things that I've been very interested in lately. So I had to write a letter of interest. I had to submit a curriculum vitae, and then I had to write an essay about why I would want to go and what I would do with the information when I got back. And so I submitted all that and waited a couple of weeks, and lo and behold, I was chosen.
So it's kind of cool. Not only do you get to go to Germany, you get to study how they do their school systems, which is a little different. Europe does things a little differently than we do here in the United States. There's probably some things that they could learn from us and some things that we could learn from them.
Yes, and it's been surprising as we've prepared to go. We've had several different webinars with German educational leaders, and so they have been sharing both some of just the general outline of how the system works, but we've also had the opportunity to talk about, problems, opportunities, challenges, and, how things are going for them right now. And there are many common issues between the two countries.
What are some of the things that you're hoping to get out of this?
I think, first of all, just to look at how that system works, because they start with an early childhood foundation in a similar fashion to what we do. But then when students get to middle school or so, that's when they kind of make choices about where they want to focus their education, whether they want to focus in a more technical kind of an area or if they want to be more academic. And so they choose their secondary school based on what their focus is. And it isn't that they're locked in, but schools can specialize more easily and provide specific types of courses that are much more meaningful because they built that critical mass to be able to offer those courses. From that point, many of the students go into internships or apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships and then apprenticeships with companies and businesses that are actually in Germany, with some of their education occurring at the school, and then the afternoon perhaps working in the business and learning. A lot of those businesses actually hire teachers as well so that they can teach the concepts and skills that are needed for the business.
In some ways, it's kind of like our technical type of things, but in other ways, it's different than that. And so it'll be kind of interesting to see how you see that once you get back from watching it in action. It seems like it's a very different way of doing things and I'm a little familiar with it just because growing up we had exchange students from Europe. My dad was actually born in Italy but only lived there for 10 years, so didn't get the full understanding, but because there's been family members that were still there, understanding that a little bit, it's definitely a very different way of looking at the educational system than we have in this country.
Mm-hmm. it is different, but I mean, I think there are a lot of similarities too. You know, children go to school at similar ages as our children do. They take similar subjects in terms of their education. So, you know, and we've talked a lot about the teacher shortage that they're seeing in Germany that we're seeing here. We've talked about, you know, behaviors and mental health and how students seem to be displaying a lot of the same types of things in Germany as they do here.
That's really interesting that, you know, because a lot of people would say, well, it's just the way that our educational system here is in the United States, but sometimes we only see things through those rose-colored glasses or dark-colored glasses or whatever that we have in this country, not realizing that the whole world is really interconnected nowadays, and a lot of the things that are happening here are happening in other parts of the world as well.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think it's been a good conversation for us to have because we get so focused a lot of times on our own system inwardly and what our problems are and how we're going to overcome them, not recognizing that maybe there's a bigger solution.
I would also think one of the neat things about what you're doing is that not only are you getting to see what they're doing in Germany, you're also going with a vast array of people from Pennsylvania as well. And I think in different areas, there are different challenges. You have challenges in forest area that we might not see in Warren, or you may have challenges, or you may be doing things that maybe somebody else like, wow, I wish we could do that because you have smaller class sizes. And so your teachers can be a little bit more hands-on. Have you noticed any of that as you've discussed things with some other people? And I mean, obviously through your career, I'm sure you've had those kind of discussions as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it is interesting to see how different schools approach things. You know, because Forest is a small district, we are able to be much more hands-on. So it will be good to go with a group of that size. You know, there are 15 of us going from all over the state, large systems, small systems. Some are school board members, some are school administrators, and one is a principal at a vocational school, and there's someone from an intermediate unit going. So it's a nice array of educational experts from, you know, those that are in the trenches every day to those that, you know, govern the systems that we have. And so to expose everybody to the same things and see what conclusions we draw should be a really, really interesting prospect.
I'm curious, you know, bringing up the fact that we have some school board members going, do you know if they set up their school systems the same way in Germany? Do they have to elect school boards? Do they do things differently than we do? Do you not know? I mean, it'd be fair that if you didn't know that yet either.
Well, we had a little bit of conversation about it, so I know just enough to screw it up, probably. No, we did ask the question about elected school board members, and they do not have elections for school board members. They are appointed. Um, you know, and so they require their governing body to have educational experience. And so it's something that people aspire to as they work through teaching and administrative ranks and, you know, doing curriculum and so on, that they receive an appointment to a regional governing board.
That's very interesting. You know, I know there's been, you know, many talks over the years. I come from a family of educators, and you know, many talks over the years about, you know, would that be a better system than what we currently have in the United States? It would be interesting to see what their take is on the system. You know, maybe they think our system's a better way of doing it. But you know, it definitely does seem interesting that, you know, you have to have some experience. I think sometimes some of the challenges that we face in Pennsylvania is that people run for school board and they're one issue people. And I'm not saying that happens at Forest area. I don't pay enough attention, to be honest. But, you know, you see that in different school districts and different elections. And then once that one issue gets taken care of, they're kind of stuck on that board for 3 or 4 more years, and they don't really want to be there anymore. And so it's definitely an interesting change in the way things are done in the two countries. I want to kind of switch gears and talk a little bit about what you guys have going on here at Forest. You know, obviously there are some challenges that every school district is facing right now, whether it's staffing, whether it's substitute teaching. Heck, I've even done some substitute teaching for you guys this year. But some of those challenges, how are you guys focused on selling Forest area as a place where somebody might want to come and work?
we try really hard to emphasize the relationships, first of all, that our teachers can have with students and with families, that these can be long-term um, friendships, really. You get to know the community, and you feel very strongly about the people in the community and wanting to help them be successful in whatever way that you can do that. We talk about the opportunity to do different things. A lot of times the teacher goes to a larger system and they end up teaching 6 sections of ninth grade social studies, which gives you an opportunity maybe to be really good at that, but can get pretty dry after the fifth or sixth repetition of that lesson sometimes. And so our teachers have several preparations, and they have the opportunity to really study and hone in with students on several different courses throughout their career. Typically, they see the students more than once, which builds that relationship. In the elementary, our classrooms are fairly small. They typically would have 15 to 20 students, and so it's nice for elementary teachers to really be able to give some additional time to their students, and they feel like they can really make a difference for them.
I know one of the really neat things, and I actually ran into one of your teachers, Mr. Hardwick, the other day at Walmart. He was getting some stuff. He's going to Virginia. They're doing and you'll be better off explaining to people what they're doing exactly than I would be. But they've got last year they did it's kind of like a science history project type thing that they did at the Outer Banks. This year they're going to do it in Virginia. Those are really neat programs and really great opportunities for your students.
Yeah, we've had a really good success with that. A lot of our students don't have opportunities typically to travel outside of the region, simply because of schedules and life in general. And, many more high school students are working now than were working probably when you and I were in school, Chris. And so, we try to build in those opportunities as learning opportunities for students. And we have a group of teachers that have really looked at how can we make this a project-based learning experience, and the students attend classes for several months prior to going on the trip, so that they have a chance to really learn some background information and think about the science experiments and projects they're going to do while they're there, and to look at the history so that they're prepared to ask really good questions when they do tours. And they often do writing assignments or math assignments or whatever else the teachers come up with that lend themselves to this immersive experience that they plan for students each year.
And that's the other thing. And you guys do such a great job, I think, of getting information out to the media about the different types of things that you're doing here. I know Darla Kennedy in your office has a lot to do with that. But it just seems like there's a lot of your teachers are very active in making sure the kids are learning outside of the classroom. How important do you believe that learning outside of the classroom is, that going to the trails or going into the woods and doing some of the stuff, or some of the other things that they're doing? How important do you think that is to their educational foundation?
Because our students are growing up in a rural area, we have unbelievable opportunities. If I step out the back door of this building, I have the Allegheny River. If I step out the front door, there's the National Forest. And so those are classrooms that are available to us for students to really have that hands-on application. And we know that most students need to read material for background and need to hear teachers talk about what they're learning, but they're going to remember it when they can touch it and do it themselves. And so we really try to provide those experiences where kids, instead of learning about water quality in the classroom only, are going to the river and taking samples and, testing for water quality and figuring out how that process works for themselves. So I think it's invaluable for students to have those experiences. And furthermore, I think that it's our job to prepare them for life. And you can't do life just by reading a book. You have to be able to adapt and look at a situation and figure out how to turn that to your advantage or to what you intended to happen. And so it gives kids a lot of practice in those life skills.
And another program that you guys are having a ton of success with, and I'm going to be upfront with people, my wife's one of the advisors of it, but your FCCLA programs at both East and West Forest have been immensely successful. I think you had another 30 teams qualify for nationals here a couple weeks ago at the States. Every year, those kids then get to go to the national conventions. Last year it was in Denver. This year's in Seattle. I think next year is in Orlando. So they get to travel all over the country. They get to experience that, but they're also representing Forest Area School District in ways that I don't know if people around here realize that, these are kids that are going head to head with kids from areas all over the country, much bigger school districts all over the country, and holding their own.
Yes, yes, no, that's very true. And I think that the FCCLA program really stresses that public speaking component as well as the service or career or whatever that is the basis of the student's project. And, the opportunity, when I first started working here, the first day I walked in, one of the things that impressed me the most was that the students met my eyes and talked to me as an adult. And that's kind of the culture in both of these schools that, you have these respectful conversations and interactions with one another. And I think that gives our students a leg up when it comes to that public speaking, that they are used to being listened to and they expect to be listened to. And so that gives them confidence when they present their projects, which is helpful. But we also are fortunate that we have a school board that supports that program to the level that they do, and we have a community that understands it and recognizes the importance of our students having these leadership experiences, which is really what it amounts to, is creating future leaders.
As we move forward with declining population in all of northwestern Pennsylvania, how much more important is collaboration with other school districts going to become? I know it's already happening. We see it a lot on the sports end of things. You guys do that not only within your own school district, but a lot with North Clarion. But as we move forward, are we going to see more of that on the academic side too?
Oh, absolutely. It's already happening in several schools across the northern tier that I'm familiar with. They've aligned their schedules, their bell schedules, and their periods so that they can do distance learning similar to what we do with foreign language, but between districts. Where the teachers in one school one day and in another school the other day, and students that are able to be combined to make large enough class sizes to accomplish what needs to be taught, to give them some choices and some variety. And I think we'll see more and more of that. You see collaboration among school districts to provide cyber education internal to the district so that those students can still be following the same program of study as their peers, so that if a student needed to do that temporarily because of a medical condition or because of a family situation that would require some travel, they can do some of that, they can return to their class and then really not miss a beat. There's lots and lots of examples. You have teachers being shared between districts. They might work 2 days in one district and 3 days in another, so that a district can provide a service without having to bear the cost of the whole professional for smaller districts who don't necessarily need a full-time person.
One of the things that always fascinated me about Forest Area School District, people are always like, well, why isn't there just one high school? And I don't know if people understand how far apart your two schools really are at the end of the day. You're probably about 45 minutes sitting here from East Forest. East Forest, I always felt like sort of aligned more with like Clarion County and Kane, and West Forest is more towards like, that Tidiute and in Venango County and things like that. What kind of challenges does that present to you guys having two small schools that are so far apart?
I'm not even sure I can answer that in the time we have, but it is 28 miles.
In 28 miles, yeah, 28 miles on roads that aren't like
right.
You're not going more than 40. On my way up, action going on, all those kind of things are definitely parts of the challenge.
Well, I was going to say, you have to understand that the most direct route requires you to go really over by the Nebraska Bridge.
And hope the bridge isn't flooded.
Yes. So it really is a challenge. But, I think that the size of the district is something that really does present some challenges. We're 503 square miles. We sit in parts of we have all of Forest County, and then we have part of Venango and part of Elk County. And
I think people are really surprised when they hear that there's parts of Elk County that are actually part of the
Yes.
Forest Area School District. I've said that to people, and I get these like looks like, "Are you kidding?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not kidding."
No, really not. And we're happy for those. But at the same time, that means that, if you're dealing with an issue that requires you to work with local government or local agencies, mental health, for instance, or whatever, we have to be familiar with three separate sets of agencies because each county operates and monitors its own. And so that's three sets of meetings that we go to for community events and so on. So there's a lot more to it, perhaps, than people realize when you're trying to align something of this size. Transportation, of course, is a huge factor for us. Um, the cost of that is fairly significant because we're busing kids to school. And if I would have known you were going to ask me that question ahead of time, I would have looked it up because it's an impressive number of miles.
It's okay. It was more the general idea of letting people understand. And I think when you talk about the 500 plus miles of square miles of dealing with, I think that gives people a pretty good idea of just how big, and it's a lot of miles of not a whole, you have pockets where you have population, but it's a lot of miles of not a whole lot in between either. And
the national forest bisects
yeah,
the county and really creates a natural geographic barrier, which is tough.
and because your schools are so small and because you're doing a lot of co-ops in your sports programs, you're busing kids back and forth from east to west and sometimes to North Clarion and in between a lot too. And that and then in a day and age where it's hard to find bus drivers and all of those challenges, it just seems like there's a lot of challenges facing education that go just beyond the classroom now. And how do you handle some of those types of things?
Yeah, there are certainly a lot of things that I say sometimes to the people around me. No one ever told me that this would be my concern, but it is my concern. And so you try to approach those challenges as they come and react to them, as necessary. I certainly feel like sometimes I'm a walking advertisement because as I'm talking to somebody and they say, "Oh, I'm looking for a job," I'm like, "Hey, have you ever thought about driving a bus? Have you ever thought about being a substitute? Have you ever thought about, working as an aide or a custodian for the school district?" And because we are constantly looking for good people to help us fill positions and make sure that the things get done here.
And those are things that, as you know from your fellow superintendent colleagues, that every school district in the area is facing the same thing. Like my across the street neighbor is Mike Stallman, head of the IU6, and it's located out of Clarion. And Mike's the one that kind of got me into doing some substitute teaching. Like I have time for that, right? But I still make enough time because I feel it's important personally to give back. I look, it's a nice little extra chunk of money. Don't get me wrong, but it's also, I feel sort of like my duty to give back to a lot of the districts that are helping us as a business as well. And but you literally could take a day every day, the way it's set up. So and then this year you got another unique challenge that you guys had to make a decision on. And that's coming up on Monday, the solar eclipse, and how are you going to handle that? And you guys decided to let the kids out at noon. What was the rationale behind that? Was it partly to give them an opportunity to experience that, partly a safety issue? What was the thought process?
Both, really. I mean, I think it's a safety issue because we would typically be transporting kids at 3 o'clock, 3:15, 3:30, right when we expect the peak of the solar eclipse to occur. And it's not that kids haven't been in the dark before, but there's the danger element of if they look at the sun and they don't think about it or they don't realize that that's the direction they're facing and what could happen to them in between, and so it's safer, I think, to not have them on the buses. And we talked about it, in terms of what the best strategy was, and in talking with the board and talking with the staff, we kind of felt like this is a special event and we want kids to be able to experience it with their family members and, talk about it and share that time together. So that was the decision
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at what, another 20 years before we see something like this again. So, even a kindergartner is going to be out of high school by the time that happens. So, it's an opportunity. And I'm sure that's an opportunity for your science teachers have probably been all over this here in the last couple of weeks, or maybe even the last couple of months. Another one of those opportunities for some real life. And I think that's always important to add some real life experiences into. We talked about outside of people doing things outside of the classroom, but I even noticed in some of the classes, I've subbed for Mr. Hoover up at East Forest, and having maybe not putting on a full play, but having kids read different parts of different plays and things like that, so that they're more interactive in their classrooms. Do you believe that kind of education makes kids learn better?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that really is how you motivate students to become responsible for their own learning in a lot of ways. When a child gets to set up a robot and is given the assignment that the robot has to go and knock on a favorite teacher's door, that makes them work really hard to figure out the programming component and the building component. How does that work? And so, we try to provide a lot of things right in the building. I mean, we have fish tanks, we have robots, we have drones. The other day, top of my head, just missed the drone in the hallway. So I mean, I think that those hands-on learning opportunities are important, whether they're in the regular classroom, as you say, reading the parts from the play, just doing things so that students are driving their own learning as much as possible. The day of the teacher being the lecturer really has gone by. That's not how kids learn. When you look at the TikTok world, it's got to be quick, it's got to be moving, and kids need that kind of change regularly during a class period. I think really if you look at a typical 40-minute period, the longest span of time that most teachers would spend would be 20 minutes doing the same activity. And some of them actually divided it to three and do three different kinds of approaches so that students stay engaged.
Well, Amanda, thanks for your time here on Coffee and a Conversation, and thanks for letting us use your office. It to be one of the few that we've actually done remote, so we really appreciate that as well. And folks, don't forget to stop by White Cane Coffee and in the Tops Plaza in downtown Warren for your fresh cup. Get one of their special laser engraved tumblers. Hey, join their club and get 50% off your refill as part of the White Cane Mug Club too. So. Anyhow, Amanda Hetrick, the superintendent here at Forest Area School District, very much appreciate it, and have fun on your trip to Germany, and hope you learn some stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.